As new parents, have you heard the phrase, just put them down anywhere, teach them to sleep through anything, make noise while they sleep so they get used to it? Babies need to learn to sleep in loud places. The real world isn't quiet. Sound familiar? This advice is everywhere, and it sounds so practical and so convenient. But what if I told you this approach might be one of the worst things you could do for your baby's developing brain? Hi, I'm Jen, nurse practitioner, and I need to talk about one of the most persistent and damaging myths about infant sleep. I get it. The idea of a baby who can sleep through anything sounds amazing, right? Imagine taking your kids to a restaurant and running errands, family gatherings, while they just nap peacefully through it all. The sleep anywhere sounds like the holy grail of parenting. But here's what I see in practice: exhausted parents who've been told their baby's too sensitive or too needy because they can't sleep through noise and chaos. Parents who feel like they're failing because their baby needs appropriate sleep conditions. Today, we're going to look at this advice and why it's not just unhelpful, but actually contradicts everything we know about infant neurodevelopment. Stay tuned. So, this myth about babies sleeping anywhere actually comes from a few different places. The cultural expectations. There's an idea that babies should be convenient and adaptable and easy. That needing special conditions for sleep is somehow creating a spoiled baby or a high maintenance baby. Then there's the adult sleep patterns. Adults can learn to sleep through noise. Think of shift workers or military personnel. So people assume the same applies to their babies. Then there's the anecdotal evidence. Someone always knows someone whose baby could sleep through a rock concert. What they don't see is that babies' outcomes that happen from that consistent sleep. Then there's the convenience culture. We want babies to fit into our lives without adjustment. And I get it. Modern life is busy, especially when you don't only have one baby. You could have multiple older children that have activities and they're noisy and they're busy, and you want that ease of predictability of your baby sleeping through it all. But infant neurobiology does not care about our schedules. The assumption is if I train them young, they'll be more adaptable later. But that's not how infant development works. Here's the critical distinction that most people don't understand. Yes, babies can sleep through noise, but there's a huge difference between sleeping through something and sleeping well during it. When babies sleep in loud, bright, or chaotic environments, they're not building a helpful skill. They're engaging survival mechanisms. Their little bodies are essentially saying, I am so exhausted that I have to sleep, even though the conditions aren't safe. What happens with survival sleep? They have more time in light sleep stages. They have frequent little arousals throughout their sleep, even if they don't fully wake up. They have elevated cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. They have reduced time in sleep and reduced time in their deep restorative sleep. And the brain remains partially on and alert that whole time. During restorative sleep, which is the quiet sleep that babies should be getting, they have full sleep cycles with adequate deep sleep, which actually helps to repair damage caused by extra cortisol in the brain, helps them to grow. They have proper progression through those sleep stages. They have memory consolidation so they can learn those pathways made during their wake cycles. Their brain development and neural pruning is actually happening during those deep sleep sessions. Their physical growth hormone releases, so they grow better and they have better immune system. So their sleep affects their immune system, which means healthier babies, especially as you transition into daycare. Think of it this way: an adult can sleep on an uncomfortable couch with the TV blaring and lights on, but would anyone argue that's quality sleep? Would you recommend someone do that every night for their health? During the first year of life, babies spend much more time in REM sleep than adults do, about 50% of their sleep compared to about 20 to 25% for us. REM sleep is when the most critical brain development happens, but REM sleep is also the light sleep stage and the most easily disrupted. So when we force babies to sleep in the non-ideal conditions, we're interrupting exactly the sleep stage that their developing brain needs the most. So let's talk about what actually happens during infant sleep, because this is where the sleep anywhere advice actually completely falls apart. During the first 3 years, a baby's brain forms 1 million new neural connections every second. Your brain develops twice the size by age 1. We undergo massive pruning, which strengthens useful connections and eliminates the non-essential ones. And they're developing the architecture for emotional regulation, learning, and memory. Most of this happens during sleep, specifically during quality, undisturbed sleep. So, what happens during disrupted sleep? When their sleep environment is consistently disrupted by noisy toddlers at home, trying to get errands done during nap time, everything else builds up. You actually increase the stress hormone production, you reduce time and sleep stages that have the restorative effect, you potentially impact cognitive development. There's emotional regulation difficulties, increased risk of sleep problems later in childhood. And this doesn't mean that one noisy nap will cause damage, but consistently prioritizing convenience over sleep actually has real consequences. Let me be clear, I'm not trying to scare you, but I do want you to understand what we're actually asking of babies when we expect them to sleep through chaos. The short-term impacts would be you might notice a more fussy baby when they're awake. You can have shorter naps, more frequent night wakings because they don't learn how to get that restorative sleep during the day. They might not get it during the night. Sleep begets sleep. You could have more difficulty falling asleep, more clingy or dysregulated behavior, and that wired but tired look. You'll notice a lot more fussiness, especially in the evenings as they continue to develop overtiredness, where they just can't calm down. Now, the long term considerations would be they could have chronic sleep disruption, that could have attention difficulties, behavioral challenges, learning problems, emotional dysregulation, and increased anxiety. Again, we're talking about chronic poor sleep, not the occasional noisy nap, but the patterns do matter and they do add up. What really concerns me as a healthcare provider, when babies are forced to sleep in non-conducive environments repeatedly, they learn that sleep is something that happens in stages of stress, not safety. The nervous system is never fully relaxing because they're not getting that full quality sleep pattern that they so crave. So, what's the answer? Do you need to tiptoe around your house and never leave the home during your baby's nap cycle? No. Like most things in parenting, it's all about finding that middle ground. For most naps and all nighttime sleep, babies benefit from darkness. Darkness signals the brain to produce melatonin. You can use blackout curtains or shades. It doesn't need to be pitch black, but it does need to be significantly darker than daytime. White noise. This is the key distinction. White noise is different than household noise or TV noise. White noise masks sudden sounds that might startle your baby awake. It creates this consistent auditory environment. You're actually supporting sleep architecture, and you need to keep it softer than a shower, about 50 to 65 decibels. Cool temperature in that room is helpful. It's 68 to 72 degrees. And a safe sleep surface, firm, flat surface always, non negotiable. Now, what's the difference between that white noise and household noise? White noise is consistent, non variable sounds that masks disruptions without being stimulating. Think a fan, a white noise machine, rainfall. Household noise, including a TV, it has variable, different sounds, different volumes, sudden sounds with commercials, laughter, doorbells. They cause micro arousals to happen in your baby. Now, you don't need to completely silence your house, but you do need to prioritize that quality sleep. So for nighttime, optimize the environment every time. And for main naps, try to create good conditions most of the time. This might mean one nap in the stroller or carrier, but ideally the longest nap of the day is in the optimal conditions. For on the go, an occasional nap in the stroller or car seat, it's not going to harm them, but try not to make that the norm. Household sounds, you don't need to whisper or tiptoe. Normal household sounds like talking, walking, doing the dishes. Have the white noise or fan running so you're not creating eggshells to walk on, but you're creating conditions that actually support sleep development. Age considerations are a factor when you're talking about a baby going anywhere from 1 day old to 1 year old. So those newborns from 0 to 3 months, they can actually sleep in a lot of various places. They love to contact nap. Now, is that always the best sleep? In the beginning, yeah, it is, except for when you have to move or cough or laugh. It makes it a little bit more challenging, but they do tend to sleep a lot. So do your best, have a few different ideal situations in there for them, but they really do like to contact nap. Once we get to the 3 to 6 month time frame, sleep becomes more organized. They become more sensitive to their environment. This is when we start transitioning into those quieter, darker environments consistently. For 6 to 12 months, sleep becomes increasingly important as sleep consolidates. So we like those longer sleep stretches for naps. Ideally, they would be in their bed for naps daily. Toddlers and beyond gradually become less sensitive to environmental disruption, but they still benefit from quality sleep conditions. Now, here are some common questions that always come up. I know someone whose baby sleeps through anything and they're fine. You're seeing output, not quality. Some babies are less sensitive, that's true, but fine doesn't mean optimal. We also don't know about their night waking patterns, their behavior during wake times, or their long term outcomes. Survivalship is real. Then there's the question, I live in a small place. I have other kids. I can't control the noise level. Do your best when you can with what you have. White noise helps tremendously. Even a fan or an app can make a huge difference. The goal isn't perfection, it's moving in the direction of better when possible. How about, won't this make them a sensitive sleeper forever? No, you're not training sensitivity, you're supporting normal development. As children's nervous systems mature, they naturally become less sensitive to environmental disruption. Those daycare babies who are in there at 1 to 3, they still nap and they still can get a couple of hours in there. It's these earlier phases as a baby, as an infant, that we want to protect their development as much as possible. What about on the go naps? Life happens. Occasional stroller naps or car naps are totally fine. But if all naps are happening in a stimulating environment, that's worth reconsidering. Maybe protect the longest nap of the day in good conditions. And then the final one, my baby falls asleep at loud family gatherings. Doesn't that prove that they're fine with it? It proves that they're tired enough to override their environment. Watch what happens that night and the next day. And often you'll see that sleep debt showing up as night wakings, early morning wakings, and difficult behavior, more fussiness. Here's what I want you to take away. Your baby isn't too sensitive, they're not high maintenance, and they're not spoiled. They're developing exactly as they should. Their needs for quality sleep conditions isn't a flaw in their personality, it's their biology doing exactly what it's supposed to do. You're not creating bad habits. You're prioritizing your sleep environment. You're supporting their brain development and emotional regulation and overall health. The goal isn't to train your baby to survive in chaos. It's to give their developing brain the conditions it needs to thrive, not just survive. And here's the irony. Babies who get quality sleep in good environments often become better sleepers over time. They learn what good sleep feels like and they develop healthy sleep associations. They have less sleep debt and dysregulation. You're not making life harder by prioritizing sleep environment. You're making it easier in the long run. If this changed how you think about infant sleep, hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.